G'day. Your camera is better than you are. So did I just insult you by saying your camera is better than you are? Well, no. What I'm trying to do is a bit of a reality check. When we think of the great photographers, think of names like Henry Cartier-Bresson, Ansel Adams, Richard Avedon, Irving Penn, Don McCullen, Margaret Burke-White, Cecil Beaton, Robert Capa, Joel Meyerowitz, Dorothy Lang, Robert Frank, Diane Arbus, Steve McCurry, and even Ouija. We know them because of their photos. When you think about their photos, what were they taken with? Because we're obsessed with gear nowadays. And whenever you show a photo somewhere, you inevitably ask the question, oh, what camera did you use? As you can see going through their photos, they used cameras that would befuddle the modern photographer. Because what on earth do you do with this big square wooden box that only has, say, one knob on it or something? How do you adjust your auto white balance? What about the spot metering? Where's that button? Why is there no function? Can't I back button focus on this? Yet these people were able to take photos that made them world famous and do it again and again and again, year after year, using equipment that most modern photographers just wouldn't even know how to turn on, because you don't turn them on. Now, it's my opinion that if you look at YouTube, it's this strange alternative reality where gear actually matters more than any photographic skill. Because even people on YouTube who proclaim themselves as photographers then go on to say things like, oh, I found this lens that X made and it's better than the lens that I've got from brand Y, so I'm selling all my brand Y gear and buying brand X gear so I can take better photos because of this lens. And they do this again and again, year after year. We all know the culprits. Every year they change systems, and basically it's clickbait. The downside is all the people watching these YouTube videos tend to think gear is the most important thing, and the technology you hold in your hand will make you a better photographer. And when better tech comes out, you better grab it, because it'll make you even better again. And if you don't, it'll hold you back. You won't be the photographer you ought to be because you haven't got the latest from brand X. Bollocks. What a load of rubbish. And inevitably, these people who go on and on about the latest gear that will improve your photography never show decent pictures that they've taken themselves. They don't get out there and take decent photos. They're just sitting at home in their studio making YouTube videos about gear, but then they call themselves photographers. So that's one of the endemic problems in the photography world on YouTube. Too many people are spruiking gear and not taking photos, not learning how photography actually happens. All these great names in the past with their clunky old cameras that couldn't do anything except have a shutter, they knew photography. But is it too late to learn photography now, when we hold in our hands technology that would astound those old photographers and probably cause them to throw the thing in the bin? No, it's not too late. There are courses you can do even on how to take better photos. But beware, because these photographers who spruik gear all the time on YouTube, some of them offer courses and it's all about how to use the gear. When I teach photography in, say, the local community centres, I don't talk about gear. I talk about light, composition, framing. I talk about the things that matter. How much does gear not matter? Some years ago I entered a photo competition with a photo taken by this old Konica Minolta Dimage. It's 3 megapixels, huge beast. I won first prize, won an exhibition, won some money. Now, I'm quite happy using my GFX 50R and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And love this camera and recommend it because it's inspiring me to go out and take photos. I can say the same about this Konica Minolta Damage 3 megapixel wonder. It's a lot of fun. It inspires me to go out and take photos. The gear does not matter. If you want to get better at photography, think about the photography, not about the gear. When you go out shooting, stop looking at your camera and look at what's in front of you. And then you'll start to see in your mind's eye what sort of picture you can take. Where's the lighting? Where's the subject? What things are in the foreground and the background? So cameras can be very impressive nowadays. They can give you a lot of control over settings and everything. But you can have masterful control of your camera. But if you don't know composition, if you don't understand light, you're just going to be taking snapshots because that's the level of photography you're at. If you're hankering to spend $6,000 on some new gear because you think it'll improve your photography, don't. Spend the $6,000 on learning how to take better photos. Nothing about gear. Nothing about gear. It's all about how you see things. How are you going to treat the light? How are you going to treat the composition? Where are you going to frame? What things are you going to have in the foreground or the background? Where's your point of interest? Those are the important things in photography, among some others. You'll learn them as you go along. And then, maybe, your photography, your name, will actually be remembered. Because nobody's going to remember you because you spent $6,000 on a camera body. That's irrelevant. Yeah, cameras are incredible nowadays and fascinating. To me, they're getting to the stage where they've got so much tech built into them and so many buttons, they get in the way. They're too complex and they're too covered in buttons. You pick up a camera and your fingers are all over buttons everywhere. You really have to be careful how you handle it. And as for touchscreens, they're like phones. You pick up a phone and because it's a touchscreen, as soon as you pick it up, something happens that you didn't want it to. Same thing with your camera. You put it up to your eye and your nose touches the screen and all of a sudden it's on 10-second timer or some rubbish like that. Sometimes tech gets in the way. These old photographers, their tech didn't get in the way. What did they have? The exposure triangle. So you think, oh, I've got to control 3 things. ISO, aperture, shutter speed. No, you don't even have to control 3 things. Even on a modern camera. You can put your ISO on auto if you want. You can put your shutter speed on auto if you want. You can do aperture priority. The old guys with their old cameras we've been looking at, they didn't have to worry about ISO. They put the film in there, it was fixed ISO, all their photos were taken at that. That was the ISO dealt with. They just didn't have to worry about shutter speed and aperture. And then which was the most important? There's really not a lot to do with your camera to take good photos. You don't have to learn how 15 buttons do things before you can take a good photo. In fact, here's a tip. When you get your brand new camera gizmo that has amazing capabilities and you can customize all your buttons and function buttons and dials, turn them all off. Yeah, turn them all off. Just have your shutter speed, your aperture and your ISO. Get back to that triangle. Don't worry about bat button focusing. In fact, don't worry about automatic focusing at all. Don't worry about eye detection. Don't worry about animal detection. Turn your focus to manual. Use that on the lens. Manual focus. You've chosen your shutter speed, your ISO. Think about what aperture you want. Take the photo. The less you're worrying about your camera, the better. Don't be looking at your camera. Look at what's in front of you, because that's what you're photographing. When you show a photo on YouTube or Instagram or any of those things, you inevitably get the question, what settings did you use? Well, I used to put up settings in some of my YouTubes of photos I took, but really, that's useless. because 5 minutes after taking that photo, my settings would probably have to be different because the light changed. Might have to change the aperture. Might have to change the shutter speed or the ISO. Telling people what settings you need to take a particular photo is a waste of time. The settings don't make the photo. The composition, the light, that's what makes the photo. Settings will change sometimes by the second. So saying, oh, if you want to take this photo, these are the settings. Nah, rubbish. Ignore settings, because if you go to a certain spot where you've seen a good photo taken, you won't be able to use those settings because it's a different day. Might be a different month, different season. The lighting's different. All your settings are going to be different. Showing settings of your photos is a waste of time because you're not going to be able to duplicate that exactly. So don't worry about other people's settings for taking photos. Don't look at your camera. Look at what's in front of you. Think about the light. Think about the composition. Think about the framing. Think about the photography, not the gear. So asking people for what settings they use for a particular photo is thinking about the wrong thing. You're thinking about the gear, it's irrelevant. Look instead at the photo. Look at the way the light plays in the photo. Look at where things are in the composition. They're the important things to worry about. Not the shutter speed, not the aperture, not the ISO. They'll all be different if you go there to take that photo. Look at the scene. Look at what's in front of you. Don't look at the camera. Okay, the camera's just there to look at the scene. And if you want to take a good photo, you look at the scene. That's what photography is about. And that's why those old names that we looked at the start, they could take amazing photos that are remembered now with big wooden boxes because they looked at the scene. And if you want to be a decent photographer, don't look at your camera. Look at the scene. Look at what's in front of you. It's irrelevant if I take this little thing or this thing out for the day because I'm not going to look at the camera, I'm going to look at the scene. So whatever camera you got, take it for a walk and have some fun. Bye.